Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
Back to the punt return issue, what is kind of the protocol there for Mississippi State on the replay, or kind of getting that thing reviewed? And if you could do anything differently, what would it be if there is anything?
There's not a lot I can do differently. There's not a lot I can do differently. I clearly have some thoughts. I just have to figure out if I'm interested in making an investment in airing those thoughts, and because so there is sort of a price to play this particular game. I've kind of reserved the right to do that, and it's still an option that's on the table. First of all, they said all plays are reviewed, and they already reviewed that one, is what was communicated to me.
Kind of along those lines, but moving on, how quick do you have to get your team to forget that one and move on to the SEC Open?
Well, our team doesn't need to worry about that. I mean, we had ample opportunities to do things different, one play aside. Well, actually, there may have been more that people would disagree on, and I think that's definitely the case. There were multiple questionable plays, but the biggest thing is we had that. We need to worry about ourselves. I mean, what we do is what's most important, and so they don't dwell on that at all. I mean, it's I handle that, and then our administration, and then in the league. So they handle that, and we focus on playing one play at a time. And we got to get better at that. That's the biggest thing.
Hey, Mike. When watching the film again, or seeing Will and his performance, did you dissect anything new? What do you kind of want to see from him more? And do you kind of want to see him be more aggressive maybe the next time around?
I think all the above. I think all the above would be the quick way to say that. I think that, I think he started out good. I think he did a pretty good job leading the unit, but I think he did hit a period where he was inconsistent, and then I think that we got to react quicker with the ball. It's it's not like to avoid sacks, react quicker. Sometimes it's that, but we need to get the ball as he goes through his progression. He needs to get the ball on him as quickly as possible, and sometimes we're too slow.
Mike, going back to the punt, obviously everyone's posting a lot about it on social media. I mean, as social media has become more prominent, I guess, what's your message to maybe players to try to avoid that when it's going to be right in front of their face all the time?
I told them I tell them to ignore it. And I don't think that that effort is particularly effective. Hopefully it reduces some, but I think. One day somebody's going to figure out how to eliminate social media from their team, and they're going to have a remarkably good team, and everybody's going to be amazed and wonder how it happened.
Steve. Later in the ballgame, Will connected on some longer throws, some deeper throws, and really kind of showed some arm strength there. Is that a product of the defensive coverage they're playing at the time, or was it a matter of urgency? How would you kind of explain how he was able to do that later in the ballgame, maybe perhaps earlier not so much?
I think we had some opportunities earlier. I do think the opponent's conscious of that, and tries to cover the deep stuff because they were playing a lot of cloud coverage and things like that. So it's not like they just give it to you, but I do think we have other opportunities, maybe not beyond them, but underneath, because there's a lot of space in there that we need to attack. And then, and he put it in play. I mean, did quite an impressive job of putting it in play. A lot of quarterbacks would like to have the day that he had, statistically. Right now we're good at right now we're only good at statistics. But statistically, they'd like to have a day like him. So, but the thing is there's just more to be had there, and we got to attack and get it. And some of it comes with the receivers and the linemen as well. Everybody together.
Memphis did a pretty good job in avoiding Tulu Griffin on those kick returns. Do you figure that teams are probably going to do that pretty much to him all the time? And how do you try to get him maybe involved in that side of the game?
The biggest thing is block. We didn't block well. I mean, there's a return that's nearly identical to the one we brought back against NC State. Difference was we blocked against NC State. We didn't block against Memphis.
Mike, you said after the Memphis game that you'll figure out what needs to be boosted in terms of whether it's morale or something else. You'll figure it out in the next day or so. Did you find that out, and what do you think it needs to be?
Well, we're still battling through some of our youth and inexperience. I mean, it's we talk about Will like he's a veteran. This was his 9th start, and even that without the pedigree of numerous seasons before and red shirts and everything else. But we're just battling through that, and it's frustrating, and everybody wants it to move quicker, and we're where we are, and so we just have to try to improve every day and get better at it. And the thing is a portion of it, I think, is making these guys realize their potential. I think sometimes they don't fully appreciate where they are and where they've developed in the last year, and we got to somehow create that vision with them a little bit too.
Makai Polk made some big plays for your offense this past weekend. Just what is it like to have a dynamic player like that to kind of run that air raid system?
He does a good job. We recruited him at Washington State. We just didn't get him, and then he recruited us here at Mississippi State. It's it's kind of funny. We said, well, we catch a lot more balls at Washington State, and then we go to Mississippi State, and he goes, yeah, I want to catch a lot more balls, and so anyway, so he came here, so it was a good deal. But he just needs to finish, be a guy that finishes plays. He's got to play through fatigue a little bit. He is dynamic, and he does play the ball in the air well, and he's a skilled guy, and I think he's really done quite a lot as far as not directly, but just put good stuff on film that we can use to illustrate as example for our other players.
Coach, speaking of Tulu, I believe he didn't have a catch on Saturday. Is that really a byproduct of the defense kind of shading his way, and how do you maybe get him more involved in the offense?
We need to get him more involved, and we've talked about that some. Right now what he does best is kick return, but I do think he's a good receiver, and he's really good on screens and all that stuff. So I think we got to get him more and more involved, and it was kind of in and out in camp, and so that was tough. And then, but he's we've got. That's kind of the subject of nearly every meeting we have, and then sometimes he'll disappear on you as far as what he does, but he is kind of an intense guy as far as what he's able to do physically and things, and so we just got to get it all ironed out. I mean, he's another guy that's, he started about 9 games also, so we got to get him rolling.
Coach Archer Trafford getting the punting duties the other day. What did you think of him in his first game with you guys?
I thought he did pretty well. I mean, I think we got to punt it less, obviously, but I thought he did a pretty good job.
Coach Orgeron talked a little bit today during his press conference about being embarrassed by last year's game and the numbers you guys were able to put up against them. I mean, when you reflect on last year, how much of that do you kind of use as you prepare for this week?
Well, not a lot, because they've changed a lot of coaches over there, so it's pretty tough, you know. There's really not much crossover, at least as far as, the personnel that's calling it and their coaches. So, and I think Ed's more involved is what I heard. I don't know that for sure, but so anyway, we're taking what we got.
What stands out to you about what LSU does on defense?
It's just kind of a fundamental defense that, they're very fundamental. They like kind of the combination of man and various shell zones, and then and they're a 4-man front. They don't mess with 3-man front a whole lot, and very basic, and very committed to what they do, and sometimes those type of defenses are the most dangerous.
A quick little two-parter here, but one, I mean, back to last year, I mean, it must have been a pretty special day for you going in there and taking down the defending national champs in your first game as Mississippi State's coach. I mean, what really kind of stood out to you about last year's game, and does that kind of go down as one of your favorite, if not your favorite, memories in your tenure here so far?
It was a good game. It was just such a swirl of, what was happening all over the place. I mean, there's a point to where I can't remember how close to, but didn't know if we were going to play or not. Everybody's messing with this COVID stuff and COVID this, COVID. I mean, and that was back, keep in mind, that was just still at the point where, everybody loves saying COVID. I mean, that was, the newness hadn't worn off. People would say COVID 5 times just to get a good taste in their mouth. And so then we go there, and then we're very happy we had the opportunity to play. Thrilled about that. And then, so then we played, and it was an intense game, as it is when you play LSU, because they're so big and fast. And then and it was a very explosive game on both sides. Big chunks of yards and things. And well, anyways, we won, and so it was a good and exciting game.
A quick follow-up to that is now this year, I mean, what sticks out to you the most about LSU when looking at the film, and what are your thoughts on Max Johnson and what he could do to you guys?
I think he's good. I mean, I thought he was good before, too. I think he's good. And then, they're awfully similar. I mean, like, some teams, some years you're better than others, but, they're very similar to what they were last year as far as, their style of play, that type of thing, and I think, most teams in the country, they're an emerging team. So, what they are this week's tough to say.
Coach, last year, I believe LSU played man almost exclusively. How much zone have you seen from them, and do you think that kind of impacts how they'll play this year?
Yeah, I do. I think it does. I think they'll play quite a bit more zone this year. They do play man still, though. Kind of between the man and zone so far this year is kind of 50-50. And then, of course, they've got a new defensive coordinator, and he's been in the league for a while and, doesn't really have a specific body of work,
Coach, you guys have a top 10 defense in the country on third down. What is it about Zach Arnett's defense that makes you guys so good on that down?
Well, part of it's being good on the other downs. I think we've done a lot of good things, defensively. We're still a little bit like offense. We've got an explosiveness that we've got to improve on. I mean, last year, we've got a lot of sacks. We got to get back to that. I think that, we do a pretty good job on first and second down, too, which definitely helps on third down. But I think Zach and that group does a really good job of adjusting to what a team tries to do, and then they don't give you the same look very many times. So it's definitely tough to play against.
You said after Saturday that maybe an issue was your team kind of looking at the schedule and making some judgments. I mean, do you kind of hope that naturally goes away when SEC play rolls around and you see names like LSU?
Well, I think that's the temptation of most teams, and I think really good ones, develop the discipline and the locker room mentality that they don't do that, and then there's others that, depending on, relative to who they play and who they are. I mean, some teams overpower their way through it. Occasionally you'll see, somebody that's got a lot of resources and they clearly undershot on somebody, and then it'll be some kind of a close game, and they just overpowered them. I mean, they're just stronger by a margin that they didn't get caught. So I mean, but it's I mean, around the country there's a number of teams that every year there's surprises. I mean, the surprising thing is if there's not surprises. One thing that I've kind of wondered, as a matter of fact, somebody ought to do a term paper on it. You guys like term papers. That's because I actually thought about. I minored in English, and all my classes, of course, were term paper classes. Then I went to law school, and at some point, law school will break you of your desire to write term papers. But anyway, what I've been curious about, and this is a genuine question, around the country, the seniors get grandfathered back in because they got an exemption for that COVID year. Yeah, he said enough. They got an exemption for that COVID year, and I'm wondering what impact that has. Like, for example, we have very, very few that we didn't have many seniors, but we have very few that exercise the opportunity to have that extra senior year. Because we didn't have that many to begin with. But I've wondered how that stacks up on some of these other teams, that were kind of senior-laden type of thing. I mean, are there teams out there with 110 scholarships right now, that type of thing? I don't know how you get those numbers. I've been curious about that and where people sit with that, because I do know some teams were having trouble getting as many walk-ons into camp. To camp as they ordinarily do with regard to numbers, because of the seniors that were still on scholarship. Anyway, so that's it. Appreciate it.